This news story was written by Perry Stein and Jeremy Roebuck. Trump Justice Deppin considers removing key check on lawmaker prosecutions. Federal prosecutors across the country may soon be able to indict members of Congress without approval from lawyers in the Justice Department's Public Integrity section. According to 3 people familiar with the proposal, attorneys in the section learned about last week. Under the proposal, investigators and prosecutors would also not be required to consult with the section's attorneys during key steps of probes into public officials, altering a long-standing provision in the Justice Department's manual that outlines how investigations of elected officials should be conducted. If adopted, the changes would remove a layer of review intended to ensure that cases against public officials are legally sound and not politically motivated. Career prosecutors in the Public Integrity section guided and signed off on the criminal investigations into alleged corruption by New York Mayor Eric Adams, Democrat, and former Democratic Senator Bob Menendez. A Justice Department spokesman confirmed the proposal and said that no final decisions have been made. The 3 people familiar with the proposal spoke on the condition of anonymity because they fear reprisals. Attorney General Pam Bondi has repeatedly accused the Biden administration of having weaponized the Justice Department and has vowed to remove politics from the nation's premier law enforcement agency. Since being sworn in, she has closely aligned the department, which traditionally keeps some distance from the White House, with the president, ratcheting up immigration enforcement and refocusing the Civil Rights Division on culture war fights that go beyond traditional conservative causes, such as religious freedom. Federal law enforcement officials arrested Newark Mayor Ras Baraka, Democrat, at an immigration facility this month, and prosecutors charged him with trespassing. Trump administration officials have warned that 3 members of Congress from New Jersey, all Democrats, who were at the facility with Baraka could be charged as well. Public corruption cases are complicated and can be difficult to prosecute. The agency has lost many of its high-profile cases, including the botched prosecutions of former Republican Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska and of former Democratic Senator John Edwards of North Carolina. But cutting the Public Integrity section out of the approval process for lawmaker prosecutions entirely could give presidentially appointed U.S. attorneys more authority in shaping public corruption cases, making prosecutions more political, said Dan Schwager, a former Public Integrity section attorney who now works in private practice. The reason you have the section is exactly what this administration says they want, which is stop politicization, Schwager said. That requires a respect and ability to understand how the laws have been applied in similar situations in the past. The only way to ensure that public officials on both sides of the aisle are treated similarly is to have as much institutional knowledge and experience as possible. The Public Integrity section, known as PIN, is based out of Justice Department headquarters in Washington and oversees prosecutions and investigations involving public officials and potential voting crimes. Created in the wake of the Watergate scandal, the section has dramatically shrunk during the Trump administration, dropping from around 30 prosecutors at the end of the Biden administration to fewer than 5 today. At least 1 person was removed from his position. Others have resigned because they disagreed with directives from Trump officials, and others have been detailed to different sections in the department. According to multiple people familiar with the section who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they fear retaliation, the Justice Department has proposed permanently shrinking the Public Integrity section, giving U.S. attorneys' offices more authority in overseeing lawmaker prosecutions. The 93 U.S. attorneys' offices across the country handle many public corruption investigations and prosecutions in their jurisdictions. But, according to the Justice Department manual, which is posted online, the PIN section must still be consulted on key steps in those investigations. Public corruption cases can become particularly fraught near an election. Justice Department rules require PIN attorneys to be consulted on even non-public investigative steps, such as subpoenas and search warrants. The Justice Department manual says that PIN attorneys must approve, not just be consulted on, charges against members of Congress when the allegations are related to their public office or campaign activities. Still, the Attorney General has final say on whether an indictment should be brought. In some instances, PIN attorneys will handle public corruption cases, or partner with relevant U.S. attorneys' offices to investigate and bring cases against public officials. Such partnerships are more common with smaller U.S. attorneys' offices that have more staffing constraints than larger cities. The point of the review is to ensure that equal responsibility is held in the field at U.S. attorneys' offices, as opposed to centralizing all authority in PIN, the Justice Department spokesman said. The Public Integrity section is also responsible for handling voting-related cases. In contested elections, The section must determine whether and how the Justice Department would intervene. The Public Integrity section has been under fire since the early days of the Trump administration. In Trump's first week in office, he removed the head of the section, Corey Amundson, as part of a wave of ousters of senior career officials across the Justice Department. Amundson, a career official, was installed in the senior job during the first Trump administration. Most leaders within the section resigned in February after a standoff with the Trump administration, which demanded that a PIN attorney sign off on dropping corruption charges against Adams. The attorneys refused. The Washington Post reported in February that political appointees in the Justice Department threatened to fire prosecutors if no one signed the motion to dismiss the case. Edward Sullivan, a veteran public corruption prosecutor, was nearing retirement and offered to sign the motion to avoid a mass firing of prosecutors and to allow his colleagues time to find jobs elsewhere. Sullivan is now the head of the small section. When Ed Martin, Trump's first pick to lead the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., considered bringing charges against Senate Minority Leader Charles E. Schumer, Democrat, New York, about years-old comments he made about two Supreme Court justices, PIN prosecutors stepped in. The attorneys counseled Martin that Schumer's language fell short of a prosecutable threat, according to multiple people familiar with the investigations. The Attorney General is still the boss, so if the Attorney General does not approve the case, it is not brought, even if it is recommended for indictment, said Paul Butler, a Georgetown law professor and former PIN attorney. There is still reason to be concerned. This is part of a shift in limiting the power of law enforcement experts in public corruption.
Trump berates Walmart over price hikes. Eat the tariffs. By Sophia Vento. President Trump on Saturday lambasted Walmart over its decision to raise prices this week due to the high costs associated with the Trump administration's trade war. Walmart should stop trying to blame tariffs as the reason for raising prices throughout the chain, the president wrote on Truth Social. Walmart made billions of dollars last year, far more than expected. Between Walmart and China, they should, as is said, eat the tariffs and not charge valued customers anything, he added. I'll be watching, and so will your customers. On Thursday, the retail giant announced plans to increase prices as early as next month in an effort to pass along costs associated with Trump's sweeping tariff agenda. The magnitude and speed at which these prices are coming to us is somewhat unprecedented in history. Walmart Chief Financial Officer John David Rainey told the Wall Street Journal earlier this week. The retail giant did not release a profit outlook for the first quarter of the year due to the uncertainty surrounding the economy, as experts have warned for months about negative impacts on U.S. consumers. We will do our best to keep our prices as low as possible, but given the magnitude of the tariffs, even at the reduced levels announced this week, we aren't able to absorb all the pressure given the reality of narrow retail margins, Walmart CEO Doug McMillon said during a Thursday earnings call. The company on Thursday shared that its profits slipped in the first quarter of the year to $4.45 billion or 56 cents per share from $5.10 billion or 63 cents per share, the Associated Press reported. Trump's Saturday post comes after the administration reversed course earlier this week, lowering tariffs on Chinese imports from 145% to 30% for 90 days. China, in response, lowered retaliatory tariffs from 125% to 10%. The move marks another major reversal on trade from the Trump administration, which has included specific Chinese tariff exemptions, 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, most of which reverted to pre-existing terms, and a 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs against dozens of countries.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kai Rizdal. A lot of the coverage of President Trump's tariffs and his trade war and the truce, in air quotes, has rightly been on what they are going to mean here in the United States. But the reality is that the entire global economy is now subject to his every change of trade and tariff heart. And as supply chains have changed as a result of all that, there are foreign corporate business opportunities and there are foreign corporate business challenges. Marketplace's Kimberly Adams was up in Canada not too long ago. She filed this story for us.
Glass bottles are filling with tequila and cans full of soda are rolling down the production line at Launchpad Copac in Collingwood, Ontario, north of Toronto on the shore of Lake Huron. The company does bottling and canning for both alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. Before the trade war, it mostly supported niche brands, organic teas, craft liquor, fruit juices, and fancy glass bottles. But now,
we've been reached out to by companies of all sizes, including multinational brands.
Scott Morrison is the company's CEO. Just about every square meter of the 40,000 square foot facility that isn't taken up by equipment is piled high with pallets of juices and sodas and liquors. Morrison says U.S. companies have been coming to him with basically the same story.
Saying, well, we've been considering moving our Canadian production out of the U.S., but before it was just a secondary or a tertiary item on their list. And now they're saying, well, clearly we should be considering this.
All the new business has made some Launchpad employees happy because they've been working and getting paid for more hours. Brad Meir is the chief facility officer at Launchpad.
Yeah, I haven't had a day off in over 2 weeks now. We had to bring in this new equipment, and we've had tours and new clients, and so yeah, it's been busy.
Giving one of those client tours during my visit was Chris Morrison.
I'm our Chief Operations Officer.
And the brother of CEO Scott Morrison. He says even with the influx of new business, the trade war has clearly had negative effects on Launchpad Copac as well. Chris says many of their customers are scared.
They've either had increases in their raw material costs, uncertainty about potential increases in the raw material costs, and downstream impact to their profitability.
And that's the case more broadly throughout Ontario's economy. A few companies may see a boost, but a lot of sectors are already hurting.
The U.S. is Ontario's most important trading partner, accounting for 77% of the province's international goods exports and 60% of its services exports.
Jeffrey Novak is the Financial Accountability Officer for the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. He and his team crunched the numbers on how the tariffs, at least as they stood in mid-April, would impact the region. They found that if the tariffs on both sides of the border were to continue,
it means that we would need to enter into what we're calling a modest recession later in the year.
GDP growth in the region would slow to less than half of what it would be without tariffs, and Novak says there would be anywhere from 69,000 to 190,000 fewer jobs in the province by next year. And that potential economic harm is eliciting another kind of reaction here in Ontario, says Launchpad Copac CEO Scott Morrison.
Everybody's been so hurt on an emotional level by feeling like the betrayal of this whole thing.
That, too, he says, is driving more business his way from companies all over Canada that used to bottle and can their products in the Chicago area or elsewhere in the U.S. All of the new business could end up doubling or even tripling the production his company did last year. Morrison just upgraded equipment that will increase the plant's production capacity, and he says he's thinking about hiring more people to help with the work, because once his clients have shifted their supply chains,
I don't think they're going to revert back ever again. I think this has now changed the landscape.
Morrison says he's asked several of his new clients if they'll stick with him, even if the tariffs go away. And they're telling him, given the economic uncertainty south of the border, production in Canada is now part of their long-term strategy. In Collingwood, Ontario, I'm Kimberly Adams for Marketplace.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to do it for today's series of legal breaking reportings. If you did enjoy this legal breaking or this series of legal breaking reporting news, please consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing, as well as firstly, and secondly, if you want to make sure you stay up to date on all the things legal breaking reporting wise, on the side of politics, please please hit the bell icon as well as the all notifications option. The bell icon is located directly beneath the screen here on the right hand side of the subscribe button. Thirdly, if you guys also want to make sure you stay up to date on all the things legal breaking reporting wise on the side of politics, please follow me on my social medias. That'll be linked down below. I'm on Instagram, Snapchat, Threads, as well as TikTok. There you guys will be updated instantly on when I've uploaded brand new legal breaking reporting and analysis videos to the channel. Fourthly, ladies and gentlemen, please help me reach and achieve the goal of 170 plus subscribers. The reason why I'm saying 170 plus subscribers, ladies and gentlemen, is because right after we reach and achieve the goal of 170 subscribers, we have more subscribers to reach and achieve right after we reach and achieve the goal of 170 subscribers. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, please stay positive. Even though I know that it is hard for you guys to stay positive, majority of you, during these unfortunate illegal induced darkness times caused by the illegal, unconstitutional Trump administration, Trump regime. And stay safe and know that justice will prevail eventually on the correct side of law, despite Donald Trump and his illegal, unconstitutional regimes and administrations, illegal executive orders, illegal actions, and illegal behaviors. And always look for the points of light in today's unfortunate induced darkness. That is all for now, and I will talk to you guys in the next legal breaking reporting.